Hello everyone, welcome to Board Game Design Time, where we design games for fun. A few months ago, I did a video about getting honest feedback. Well, today, I want to talk to you and give you some tips about how to give good feedback. It's a useful tool for all designers, and so let's get right into it. My first piece of advice for giving good playtest feedback is to find out from the designer what type of feedback they're looking for. If you playtest with me, I'll probably tell you up front, but if I don't know what you're looking for as a playtester, I'll just ask straight up. It's important because oftentimes the designer already knows some parts of their game aren't really working. For example, graphic design. They might know the graphic design is crummy. They might not care about your opinions on that right now, but there could be a whole bunch of stuff that they're looking for that they want you to be paying attention to as the game goes on. So I'll flat out ask a designer when I sit down, what type of feedback are you looking for? And let that be what drives my note-taking during the playtest process. And that actually leads to my second point. I don't know why I'm doing it this way. I could have done it that way. That would have been better. My second point of playtest feedback is take notes during the session. I like to take notes and then give all my feedback after the playtest is over. That way I'm not stopping the game cold and derailing it with some conversations about whether or not something's working. If the designer stops the game and asks me a question, that's one thing. But as a playtester, I want to just keep playing, writing my notes down, and then deliver them once we've all played through. It's a lot easier for me to kind of remember what I'm doing when I'm keeping notes, and it's a lot easier for the designer to run the playtest when it's not being stopped every 3 minutes because something is not really working. So write down notes during the playtest, deliver them to the designer afterwards, and it makes the whole process go a whole lot smoother. My third tip for giving playtest advice is to really try to figure out the design intention behind what's going on. For example, if you're playing a game and it's a party game and it's something that would be suited for younger children, you don't go into that game with the same criticisms that you would have if it was like a very intense war game. You want to make sure that you're trying to be as objective as possible when delivering your critiques of the design that you're playing. Be mindful of the genre of the game, the type of experience that the designer is trying to create, and that will help guide your feedback. And obviously for the designer, it really helps them to not get all of these conflicting sort of pieces of feedback that aren't really going to end up being in the final game anyway, because they were making a game for 5-year-olds and you were talking about strategies for like pro-level Magic players. So make sure that you're giving feedback that is congruent with the experience that is presented. Number 4 is one of my biggest pet peeves of all time when it comes to game design. If you've been watching a lot of these Board Game Design Time episodes, you probably know what it is, but that is you are a playtester. You are not a designer during this process, and so you should not be trying to redesign the game that you're playing. I would sum it up this way. You're there to give feedback to the designer and tell them what's wrong. You're not there to tell them how to fix it. That's their job. One of the biggest things that I see when I'm at a table with newer designers is, of course, you're playing a game and you have ideas. Oh, wouldn't this be cool if there was a faction that did X? Or if you added, worker placement to this game or drafting to this game. You are now not helping the designer make their best possible product. Instead, you are trying to redesign their product in a vision that fits yours. So one of my biggest pet peeves is to make sure that you're not redesigning their game. Instead, you're giving them feedback about your experience and letting them suss it out. And last but not least is something that I personally want to get better at because I'm not the best at it, but I try to be mindful and try to always improve myself in my process. And that is to not allow yourself to get too frustrated or too upset when the rules of the game are particularly broken and it causes you to not do well. You want to try to have fun if possible, keep it light. It can sometimes be difficult. I was playtesting a game recently where at the very, very end, victory was snatched from me because there was a really, really broken card that my opponent had that I did not have access to, and I was very, very mad, and I think I kind of put my emotions out there, and I think the designer knew that. Ultimately, I wasn't being the best possible playtester I could have been. What the designer needed to know is how I felt, but I didn't necessarily need to, be a jerk about it. So if you're watching this, I'm sorry that happened. I got a little bit too emotional. And that would be my fifth piece of advice is don't get too emotional, try to be light, have fun, and realize that this experience for the designer is probably a little bit nerve-wracking anyway, without you picking apart every little thing that goes wrong. Try to be light with it and try to be positive so that the designer can actually turn around and say, you know what, this game was incredibly broken and not everyone had fun, but it has potential. I didn't ruin anyone's life. So try to be mindful of that and be a nice person. That's, I guess, number 5 is be a nice person. Does that sound good? Nice person, just be a nice person?
Yeah.
That should have been number 1.
Be a nice person first and foremost.
Or 5th, and 5th most. And that's all for today's episode of Board Game Design Time. Thank you for watching. Hopefully we gave you some advice that you can take when you go and play test someone else's game. And you should be playtesting other people's games. It helps you as a designer. It's always good to pay it forward. If you have any questions about playtesting, whether giving playtests or doing playtests, make sure you go down below, put them in the comments. We'll answer those in future episodes of Board Game Design Time. Of course, if you want to see those future episodes, make sure to hit the subscribe button. I think it's down there. I'm going to point there anyway. And that way you'll get notified when we put out more episodes of Board Game Design Time. Thank you for watching. I'll see you later.